Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. And a big welcome to this webinar. My name is Kirk Enu, and I'm one of 4 delegates of the World Water Council, and also a postdoctoral researcher at EPFL. And it's, of course, my pleasure, together with our collaborators and partners, to welcome you to this webinar on nature-based solutions and water security, and also innovative finance. So, of course, it's a webinar co-organized by the INBO, International Network of Basin Organizations, TNC, Nature Conservancy, the SWAM, which is a Swedish Agency for Marine and Water Management, and then CAF, Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, and also supported by the World Water Council. So before we get going, it'll be a pleasure to know where you are joining us from. So we can take a minute or two, just put in the chats which country, even city, you join us from. At least I am joining you from Ghana in West Africa. But let's hear where you join us from. Hey, we see Ruud from the Netherlands, and Shemahon. And then we have Andrea from the United States. We have someone from Nigeria. So already we know we touch North America, Europe, West Africa again. We have Canada, we have the UK, Malta, Romania. It seems so almost every region is represented. Yeah, we have Steven from Kenya, from France, from Hungary, Kazakhstan. Yeah. And then we have Velma from Finland as well. Yeah, it's great to have you all, and keep it coming. But while you do so, just a few points. Of course, this webinar is being recorded, and the slides that our experts will share will be made available after the session. But you can put in any questions you have in the chats at any time. And we would have a dedicated Q&A section at the end. But prior to that, we have three speakers that give us different aspects of this topic. Just something to keep in mind also is, in case you see a question you'd like to ask already put in the chat, and you can use the thumbs up or other emojis to validate or to also support. And this will help us to prioritize which questions to ask. And then something also, we really encourage you to share any experiences or examples of nature-based solutions in your region that it can help us have a very collective learning experience. So without much ado, I would like to proceed. And before we frame today's conversation, maybe I just say that, of course, we know climate change is intensifying hazards like floods, droughts, ecosystem degradation, and so on. And nature-based solutions have emerged as an adaptive and no-regret approach to managing these hazards. So over the next 90 minutes, we would look at different facets of this in the context of what NBS are and the financing aspects. So to open the dialogue, we are honored to have Dr. Eric Tardieu, and he's the Secretary General of INBO. And of course, Dr. Tardieu has championed the integration of basin-level cooperation and ecosystem management across various regions in the world. So we'll take a message from Eric Tardieu.
Thank you very much. Kirk, Edouard Bonnet here from INBO. We will launch the recorded video in a second. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I'm very happy to be with you today for the introduction of this new webinar dedicated to nature-based solutions and innovative finance. My name is Eric Tardieu. I'm the Secretary General of the International Network of Basin Organizations, part of the organizing team of this webinar. 2 days ago, together with our colleagues from the Swedish Agency for Marine and Water Management, we already organized one webinar session dedicated to nature-based solutions as non-regret measures. It was more about the why should we implement nature-based solutions. Today is more about how to implement nature-based solutions, how to finance nature-based solutions. This is really important to keep in mind all the co-benefits of these solutions, not only, of course, from the environmental and ecological point of view, but also for the co-benefits more related to other human activities and risk reduction and management. We believe that we need to scale up these solutions, and we can do that by better understanding the real and complete value of these solutions. And we know that we are not completely able right now to fully integrate all the multifunctional aspects of nature-based solutions, all the co-benefits that are at the core of their business case and of their interests. This is a gap that we need to bridge. We believe also that this is not a niche concern. We will address this topic during the COP30 in Belém, in Brazil, because we know that nature-based solutions are also key solutions in terms of adaptation to climate change, and that adaptation and finance must be at the heart of the climate agenda. So the discussions that we are continuing today on innovative mechanisms from water funds to blended finance are directly contributing to our global conversation. They provide concrete tools, the tools that we need to turn political intentions to real and implementable projects on the ground. INBO is fully committed to promoting these solutions. I would like, therefore, to thank our partners, the Nature Conservancy, CAF, SWAM, and of course all of you for joining this critical dialogue. I'm now delighted to kick off this webinar and to leave the floor to the excellent speakers that are mobilized for today. They will share their experiences with you all. I'm confident that your exchanges and discussions today will be very fruitful. Thank you very much.
So thank you, and thank you to Dr. Tardieu and to the INBO team. So without much ado, I continue, and it's my pleasure to welcome Andrea Erickson-Quiroz. Andrea is the Global Managing Director for Provide Food and Water at the Nature Conservancy, and her leadership has been instrumental in linking conservation and finance and in developing watershed investment platforms that blend ecological performance with financial innovation. She will offer her opening reflections on why nature-based solutions, or NBS, are essential infrastructure for our shared climate and water future. Andrea, thank you, and over to you.
Thank you so much, and good day to everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your interest in this topic, and to the partners who are coming together. We've worked together many times to advance both learnings and evidence, but also share results and get people more engaged. So it's a great collaboration. I'm going to actually step back and look at global freshwater and what's happening globally to sort of set the stage and as a way to connect to start our journey to connect freshwater systems and water security, much of which our following speakers will speak to in great detail. So I think I want to say the obvious, which is ecosystems, the freshwater ecosystems of the world is where we get many of our resources that are really important to us. Our water resources, our food comes from freshwater ecosystems. It starts in nature. But let's take a look at how we're doing in terms of water is the driver of prosperity, but how much is there of it? What are our limits and what is happening currently to water on the planet? So you'll recognize the globe and the globe here missing some water. And the water, if you balled it up in one place and sort of settled it into one ball, you'd find that it has a diameter. Sorry, my math right this morning is in the United States and it's in miles. So 860 miles diameter across, and you can do your math to kilometers. This is all water. This is salt water, fresh water. This is surface water. This is underground water, frozen water, everything that we have on the planet. If we took away the salt water, you'll notice that the sphere of water available to us is quite a bit smaller. And that is only about 170 miles across. And but that's including a lot of ice or deep water that is not accessible. So when we talk about what's really accessible to us that we can use every day, watch the circle. That's it. That little tiny dot. Did you miss that? Let's go back one. Watch the dot. That's it. It's only 35 miles across a sphere of water that we have available for us in our freshwater ecosystems that we can use every day for our needs and for our communities. Not much. It's a limited resource. So what are the freshwater ecosystems that I'm talking about? Lakes, groundwater, wetlands, and watersheds. And, these are wetlands are one of the most precious water or ecosystems globally because of multiple values that they provide. But, you guys know what these look like. And of course, our precious rivers. Now, what's going on? How are they doing? And the news is actually not that good. 40% of watersheds, the lands around the rivers, are degraded, which impacts then everything that happens in that water. Everything in the land drains to water. So that degradation is not a good thing. Only a third of our rivers are free flowing. We have used them so heavily. They're so hardworking with dams and infrastructure that only a third are still functioning as free flowing rivers. Most of our wetlands have been lost, and they're important not just for the water that's in there, but they also are really important in terms of the amount of sort of filtering and value that they present for cleaning water. And then 32% of our watersheds are already suffering stress, but that turns into about 70 to 75% of the people on the planet will be living with some sort of water scarcity or water stress. So that may only be a third of the watersheds, but that's a lot of people actually are impacted by that water shortages. When we look at water shortage on the ground, this one always is so impactful to me. This is the Aral Sea, which used to be the third largest lake in the world. It's a very large lake basin. But at this point in time, it's down to about 10% of its original size. And that's due to management. That is the management of the water that has, through agricultural activities, pulled off so much water that we've killed the ecosystem. So that kills now the fisheries, the livelihoods of the people around the lake. It also kills their ability to do more agricultural irrigation. So not managing for the whole ecosystem, we actually undermine our own well-being, water security, and food security. Pretty startling to see the results and how much change we can create. What's happening then? Species are declining, particularly freshwater species. So in terms of biodiversity, it's the hardest hit ecosystem on the planet. That's not good for any of us because it's important in maintaining many other processes. When we look at climate change, we see very high areas. The dark blue in the upper globe is where we have high events of flooding. Those are increasing in many areas around the globe with climate change based on recent modeling. Likewise, drought. And drought is inescapable. It's increasing. There's no way to really stop drought, but how we manage the water within drought conditions is, in fact, something we have control of. And those drought conditions will continue to increase. Now, I want you to notice for just a moment the drought increase in the Amazon basin in Latin America. The Amazon basin is one of those major systems of forests that feeds our hydrologic water cycle globally. And as it is impacted by drought, the health and extent of those forests will also be impacted. So stepping back one more click is to look at how are all those ecosystems related to water resources, relating to the uses that we have for that water, and then our well-being. Now, this is from the Global Commission on the Economics of Water. It's on the left side is where it all starts. If we don't have intact ecosystems, and particularly healthy freshwater ecosystems, we don't get the water cycle that we have been used to and living where we live today. Therefore, we don't get the water resources. So we need to find solutions that both provide water security while enhancing the ecological security of the systems that we depend on. So as we see the Amazon be impacted by ever-increasing drought, and those forests are impacted, we should expect to see that the water cycle globally will change. And that change might be seen in England or in Kenya because it is a global water cycle. So let's find those solutions. Let's put those things together in practice. We looked at nature-based solutions globally and said, where might there be opportunities for cities to invest in nature-based solutions and have positive outcomes for their communities that are cost effective. And what we found is there were nearly 1,000 high opportunity cities for positive outcomes using nature-based solutions. So 4 to 5 of large cities. Some of those could be done with savings in their water treatment alone could be paid for. And so that means it's a cost, it's an opportunity for ROI, and it's an opportunity for investment and finance because they're actually going to save money. And will impact over 1 billion people if we could do that. So let's think about that. How can we do that together? And that is the topic of today. So I leave you with that, the importance of the integration between the systems, the ecological systems, and the ecological integrity and water security, which is a necessary component of life for all of us. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to the next presentations.
Thank you, Andrea, for such a strong foundation and showing how these important statistics behind the water challenges we deal with, and also how the system of systems approach to management should be the foundation of whatever solutions that are proffered. So and next we go to Naomi Noel. She's also with the Nature Conservancy and is the Senior Partnerships Associate for Water and Resilience. And Naomi works closely with corporations and development finance institutions to mainstream NBS into their operations and investments. And before joining TNC, she spent over 15 years at the French Development Agency, leading projects in agriculture, rural development, and biodiversity across Africa and other regions. So Naomi, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kirk, for this introduction, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Naomi Noel. I work at the Nature Conservancy, like Kirk just said, in the resilient watershed teams, and I will take the next 10 minutes or so to set the scene for today's discussion. And first, let me touch a little bit on key concepts and share some definitions to make sure that we have the same understanding of the concepts that we are going to discuss throughout the webinar. So when we talk about nature-based solutions for water security, we are really talking about how to leverage nature and the power of healthy ecosystems to protect people and safeguard a stable and biodiverse future. And what we're going to discuss today is how nature-based solutions can help sustain water security, and water security can be thought of in terms of availability of an acceptable quantity and quality of water to support human health and economic developments, and also in terms of protecting the population from the impact of water pollution and water-related disasters like floods. Water insecurity can be caused by any number of drivers that change conditions within the watersheds and therefore the benefits that watersheds can provide. And I'm not going to dive again into the details of the water challenges that we're facing because Andrea did a very compelling presentation, but the key message here is that the situation today is very worrying in terms of both the quality and water resources, and water risks are only going to increase in the context of climate change. So the good news is that we know that it's possible to work hand in hand with nature, investing in building up nature's capacity to mitigate the many threats associated with the increased variability in precipitation due to climate change. And at the heart of the concept of nature-based solutions is recognition that for any drought, flood, or pollution events, our own water security is in fact intimately tied to the health of the ecosystems we live in. And when you take measures to protect or restore an ecosystem, and you can see on the slides the type of nature-based solutions that we will be referring to today, you can really enjoy many biodiversity benefits as well as improved water security for people. But importantly, these healthy ecosystems are particularly resilient and adaptable to changing climates. And really, there is strong and growing evidence that all the nature-based solutions that you saw on the previous slide are efficient to address water challenges. And this is a table comparing typical water security benefits addressed and potential co-benefits of nature-based solutions based on a review of scientific articles. And what we can see is that the magnitude of water benefits varies, as does the evidence-based, but the efficiency of nature-based solutions has been now well established for water quality. And we're talking about retaining nutrients and sediments and flood management. And for water quantity, referring to sustaining base flow or replenishing groundwater, results are highly depending on local conditions. But also it's important to bear in mind that those benefits can be increased when optimized in a combination of green and gray infrastructure. And on top of these water security benefits, the nature-based solution can deliver also multiple co-benefits. And on this slide, you can see just some examples of the co-benefits that you might be able to generate with nature-based solutions. So things like urban heat reduction, carbon sequestration through agroforestry, reducing exposure to harmful pollutants or job creation, and then, of course, improving biodiversity through habitat protection or restoration. So all of these co-benefits need to be taken into account, including for the monetization when assessing the return on investment of such solutions and building the business case, even if sometimes it's difficult to value all of them. And also by leveraging co-benefits, these nature-based solutions can attract multiple revenue streams to cover investment, but also maintenance costs. So one of the questions that you would ask yourself is, if it is so beneficial, why don't we see more investment into nature-based solutions? And this estimates on the slides of investment in the water sector comes from Global Water Intelligence back in 2018. And at that time, around $800 billion were invested annually in the water sector. And this is more or less the traditional gray infrastructure investments. And at the same time, analysis of what goes to watershed investments revealed figures that were insignificant in comparison. And I'll say a bit more about these figures and how they have evolved recently in a minute. But one of the potential reasons of this underinvestment is because there are many benefits and co-benefits from nature-based solutions, there are also many beneficiaries and multiple revenue streams that can potentially be mobilized to cover investment costs in nature-based solutions. And one of the ways TNC and others have been working to address these fragmented revenue streams is to set what we call water funds or watershed investment programs which are based on the premise that there are resources that can be mobilized from downstream water users who benefit from water protection in the upper watershed to invest upstream in the watershed so that these solutions can be implemented at scale. And scale is important here because unlike gray infrastructure, nature-based solutions typically require large-scale deployments to deliver expected benefits. And so these water funds or watershed investment programs are a great concept, but in practice, their design, their financing and implementation pose a number of challenges. And we'll have to address a number of key questions like what kind of nature-based solutions and where should they be implemented in priority in the watershed to maximize the benefits? How to motivate and sustain funding, and this is one of the key questions for our webinar today. How to quantify the benefits that this NBS can generate, how to incentivize and manage co-investment, how to build capacity for the implementation and ensure local ownership, what is the appropriate governance, how to manage cash flow, and how to make sure the operation and maintenance is properly implemented. And as the number of investment programs in nature-based solutions around the world increases, there are more and more useful references, and the case studies that will be presented in this webinar are great examples. But it's also important to bear in mind that the answers to these questions are mainly context dependent, and there is no one-size-fits-all solution. So finally, I would like to share with you the results of a comprehensive study conducted by TNC and Forest Trend, published this year on the state of investment in nature-based solutions for water security. The report looks at funding for nature-based solutions between 2013 and 2023. And the good news is that global investment in nature-based solutions for water security doubled over the past decade, and they've now reached $49 billion in 2023. So this growth is mainly driven by China, Europe, and North America, but positive growth rates are observed in all regions of the world, with the highest growth rates in Africa. If we look at the payers, governments, unsurprisingly, drive the vast majority of investment in nature-based solutions, and they are still driving around 97% of global investments. And this investment has roughly doubled over the past decade. But we also saw increasing participation by payers outside of governments. We saw a 3-time increase from water utilities and user fees, a 10 times increase from multilateral institutions and foreign assistance, particularly grant funding mechanisms, because loans are captured in the government investments. And then the private sector was still the smaller chunk of investment, but they actually have the highest growth rate, with a 30 times growth rate over the past decade. So these figures shows us that nature-based solutions for water are no longer a fringe, but they do still face some challenges. Public funding dominates, but it's vulnerable to shifting political and economic priorities. And it's crucial to develop innovative funding mechanisms based on reliable and resilient revenue models that leverage co-benefits to diversify the funding pool. And nature-based solution projects have typically long development phases, inherent uncertainty. So achieving the upscaling of these solutions requires patience, long-term directed finance. And here's where the role of public development banks like CAF comes in. So I'm going to stop there. I will put the chat in the chat the link to this report, and I encourage you to take a look at it. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Naomi, also for laying out the global perspective and also bringing us to the conceptual positioning. So next we take the PowerPoint, the presentation by Franz Rojas. Franz Rojas will speak to us on finance as a primer and instruments for scaling NBS. Of course, Franz Rojas is the head of the Water and Sanitation Division at CAF, and he has long championed strategic planning and sustainable investment to address water scarcity and climate resilience. His work spans across high-level initiatives like the Global Transformation Agenda on Water Investments, several regional programs, and of course, many World Water Forums. So without much ado, I hand over to Franz.
Thank you very much, Kirk, for the presentation. I'm very glad to join this webinar along with INBO, TNC, SWAM, and the World Water Council. Indeed, it's a pleasure to be here. And let me move to our presentation, just to fix it. Okay. Well, I'm going to speak about different instruments that could be applied for gray infrastructure, but for nature-based solutions as well. And I have some examples of what we have been doing, just clear examples of the possibilities of financing nature-based solutions. So one of the options definitely is through bonds, and we have different typology of bonds with classifying with government bonds. I mean, the nations can issue bonds to finance public projects or operations, and depending on the projects, it could be also nature-based solutions as well, or impact bonds adhere to government bonds. And also we have corporate bonds, and at the local level, also municipal bonds issued by local government. So these are the common bonds, but in the recent 5-6 years, arose what we call thematic bonds, and they are aligned with SDGs. So the intention is that the government or the municipality issue the bonds, but close related with some specifics, in this case to conservation, or to increase reforestation, or to have some benefits in terms of inclusion. So depending on that, we call green bonds or social bonds or sustainability bonds that are a mix of green and social bonds. So for instance, in water security could be going through the lenses of green bonds, but also if we are talking about water and sanitation, could be also as a component of social bonds, or even to sustainability bonds. And now very, very recently, there appear what we call sustainability linked bonds, which is a common bond, but linked to financial characteristics to predetermine sustainability performance targets. So for instance, if the issuer fails targets, so he faces, or it faces penalties, I mean the higher coupon rates, or if it exceeds the targets, then they can requests for lowering the rates. So that's a compensation. So it's an incentive, a type of bonds that can compensate or to premium if they exceed the targets, or penalize if they don't comply the target. So this is the world of bonds that I don't want to stop too much there, but just to mention. We also have, sorry, I think this is very sensitive. We also have loans, the typical loans that could be sovereign loans, what we call sovereign loans. For instance, the multilateral development bond, the multilateral development banks provide loans to the nations, to the governments, and we call sovereign loans because it comes with a guarantee of the nation. So in this case, most of multilateral development banks provide this type of sovereign loans, and in a way of concessional loan, and the eligibility are countries for sure. And we have different options of financing. The most common is the investment project financing, that it's aligned with a set of projects that are grouped into a big project, or perhaps some specifics, and this is very common. We also have policy-based loans that it's more intended to contribute to the countries to have reforms, for instance, and it is established along with a matrix of different public policies that the country has to comply, and based on the accomplishment of the targets of this matrix of different public policies, then disbursements are made. So this is what we call a policy-based loans. We have results-based loans, and it's similar to the IPF, but with some distinctions that it's not related to physical progress of the project, but to some milestones that are pre-agreed with the government. And we also have credit lines, which is a set of a big line of credit and you can implement it through different loans that are packaged in different phases. So it's a better option when you have a big program and you don't want to pay the interest rate since the beginning if it's going to take, for instance, 10 years. So in that case, it's better to look for a credit line with 3-4 phases, and then you just pay for the first tranche agreed with a contract, and then you can follow the second tranche and so on. And it's recently more new to have guarantees, and I'm going to present one of them, so I'm not going to stop here. But this is the world of sovereign loans. We also have corporate loans or with a collateral, and the sustainability-linked loans, which are close related to the sustainability-linked bonds. So it's the same idea, loans or bonds, and there are some cases of leak detection. Not sure that it was applied to nature-based solutions, but the option exists, and the idea of this webinar is to share the different alternatives or options for financing, and nature-based solutions are part of it. What we have based on that, for instance, in CAF, in the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, we have finance projects that includes nature-based solutions. For instance, this IPF that was called Social Environmental Development Program with the municipality of Sobral in Brazil. It consisted of filtering gardens for around 7,000 square meters to reduce contamination in rivers that are across the city. So it was actions to restore degraded areas and installing these filter gardens, as I said, in tributaries of the Acaruji River. And the loan was $50 million. And the municipality was very excited, and now we're discussing on a preparation of a second phase with other tributaries. And we also have some other examples in Brazil, for instance, in the municipality of Niterói and others. And I think that would be an option following this example of the municipality of Sobral. And also in Ecuador, another example is an IPF with linear parks for infiltration and to reduce surface runoff excess. And it was a combination of green and gray infrastructure. And these type of examples are following the traditional project, but with the initiative of the municipalities that have presented to us this combination of green infrastructure in order to be provided by CAF, and we agreed on that. So we are very open, and I guess most of multilateral development banks are keen to explore different options of following this traditional scheme of IPFs. We also have knowledge. We have not been participating as CAF, but we know that others, multilateral banks, have been very involved in water funds. Water funds are financing mechanisms for conservation that uses investments from downstream water users to fund upstream watershed protection. For instance, the common is to establish a trust fund, and these funds ensure a clean and reliable water supply at the source instead of addressing them downstream, which can be the partners of this trust fund, water utilities, hydropower companies, bottling companies, and sometimes could be also a multilateral or NGO that is interested in add as a way of equity in this trust fund. And the idea is not to take the trust fund, I mean the capital, the main capital, but to invest in restoration and other projects, taking the revenue from the fund. I mean the interest that is gained through this budget, and then to be oriented to address different conservation projects upstream. And some water funds paid for community-wide reforestation projects upstream from urban centers. For instance, the well-known example of Quito in Ecuador or Bogota in Colombia. And in other cases, like the Brazil Atlantic Forest, municipality collect fees from water users and make direct payments to farmers. So as you can see, there are different alternatives to compensate the farmers or the people who live upstream, but the idea is to protect the water sources. So this is, I know that in Latin America, there are more than 30 water funds, and it's an option. And we, as CAP, we have been discussing in some countries the establishment of other water funds in some specific watersheds in Latin America. And let me, talk a little bit about what blended finance are. So blended finance, as you can imagine, due to this definition, it's the strategic use of development finance. And when we are talking about development finance, it covers NGOs, philanthropies, and multilateral development banks, which are the world of development finance, and to mobilize additional finance towards sustainable development. And the additional finance, the idea is to come from other stakeholders that are not have been participating in the water sector in this case. So it could cover, for instance, the public development banks, I mean the national or subnational development banks that are covering different options, but also the commercial finance commercial banks. So the idea is to have a blend coming grants from philanthropic aspects or concessional loans from multilateral development banks to catalyze, to attract other resources from commercial or PDBs, as I said. So in this blend, you can have, for sure, a balance of interest rate and other considerations, taking advantage of the grants or the concessional loans, plus the addition of other sources coming from commercial funds. And the different alternatives to have this blend could be to have lower capital costs or to provide guarantees or insurance to de-risk these projects, or sometimes to provide technical assistance as non-reimbursable resources that could be in the combination. So the loan could be one, but along with technical assistance that come up with this loan. So this combination could be also understood as a blended finance or for project preparation facilities. So this is the way, and with the World Water Council, we publish a document that discusses a little bit more about the opportunities on blended finance in the water sector. And last, let me share this debt for freshwater swap that CAF was involved, and it was the first one applied for freshwater. We know that there have been others for oceans, I mean, but not for freshwater. And it was the first debt conversion of $1 billion that will conserve the Lempa River Basin. I mean, the Lempa River Basin is very important for El Salvador because it covers around 50% of the territory. And with a transaction that I'm going to explain in a little detail in the next slide. So the idea was to provide a sovereign risk guarantee implemented under standard by letter of credit. And these gains was to have a savings of $350 million that's going to be applied for the conservation of the basin, the watershed. So how it worked is that the government of El Salvador decided to reduce and to repurchase the debt it has, but looking for better alternatives in terms of interest rate. But due to the rating that the government has, so they decided to establish an SPV, and a specific purpose vehicle. And this specific purpose vehicle with two instruments, the guarantee coming from CAF and the insurance cost, that it was a PRI, I mean, a performance risk insurance provided by DFC. So with these two guarantees, the current rating that was lower got a better expected rating. In this case was 14 notches. I mean, for those who are not accustomed to these terms, it was, for instance, that it was classified as C in in classification and rating systems, so we can get A or A2 plus or something like that. So with this better position of the instrument, so they offer these impact notes that could be similar to impact bonds to an interest that was bonds, could be bond investors, or in this case, a bank. And with this new contract with better conditions, they repurchase at a discount rate. So based on this agreement that it requires a very specific and detailed financial team and also attorneys and others. So we got this process, and it was, sorry, the savings of this transaction that was 1 billion was applied to have gains of $350 million that's going to be in 20 years. And the idea was to establish what we call a conservation trust fund. And this is very close to the water funds, because one would be the endowment fund. So the idea is just to use the interests or the revenues coming from this endowment fund to provide for the projects, but also part of it to have directly to have investments in different projects. So the idea with this combination through this trust fund is to address different necessities in order to have a better conservation of the Lempa River. So we have decided to establish 6 programs, with this, 6 programs that could also cover gray infrastructure, but also green infrastructure. So the discussion now is which will be the best projects to apply into the basin. But the idea is to have these objectives: to improve water quality, restore biodiversity, strengthen planning, management, and monitoring capacity of water resources, water use efficiency, strengthen environmental policies, and stimulate economic development. So with these 6 programs, the idea is that there is an opportunity, the space to apply for nature-based solutions for sure, and that's the idea, to have a better combination of green and gray infrastructure. And this transaction got different prizes. One is the social infrastructure deal of the year that was won last year. And how to mobilize, and I conclude with this because I'm almost in the 15 minutes I have. The idea is that if we have water project preparation facilities like the one we have at CAF, so we have a space to design the different projects. I mean, in the pre-investment phase, we have the opportunity to discuss and see which would be the best projects to fit into the objectives of this. So I think this is an opportunity if others could have these water project preparation facilities in order to have these discussions in the feasibility studies or in the final designs, because if not, then we have the paradox that when governments bring the projects, they usually follow the gray infrastructure, so it's very difficult to try to go back. But if in the inception of the idea of a project, we work on nature-based solutions, I think there's more opportunity, more room to have these projects as part of a project that could be very useful for the communities and the people. So that was my presentation. Sorry, my mouse was very sensitive, but thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Franz. Quite comprehensive and really grounded explanation of the different financing mechanisms and models available. I'm sure there are many questions, and also like to remind our participants, please put in any questions you have. Our speakers will come back to address each one, as many as possible. So please feel free to put in as many questions as you have. And indeed, if anyone also has worked on NBS finance or local restoration projects, and you'd love to share the experiences, please feel free to do so. And moving on, next we take the presentation by Florentina Nanu. And Florentina is a managing partner at Business Development Group in Romania. She's an economist specializing in innovation for local development with a focus on water agri-food, and energy efficiency sectors. She has extensive experience bridging research and implementation in European adaptation projects and circular economy initiatives. So she'll share with us the case of the Jewel River Basin. Naomi, I'm sorry, Florentina, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. I hope that you all see my screen in this moment. Good afternoon, and very happy to be in this esteemed audience. I think it's an interesting exercise to share the knowledge from different perspectives, and I'm happy to be part of this conversation today. Yeah, a very short introduction of our organization. We are actually specialized in streaming innovation in practice and support sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Our main work strengthens the local communities and trying to put them in the light by involving and in strengthening their alliances with different level policymakers, but also with education and research sectors. We have a wide, let's say, array of activities that we conduct at local level. And today my idea was to take you through the journey that our organization took, starting with 2016, as part of different consortia that were including case studies in Romania, to which we were directly involved. I will start with NIAD. That's probably known for many of you. That was between 2016 and 2020, looking at different ways of proving the nature insurance value, make it more interesting from the different perspectives, but also taking into consideration different hazards, different scales, different areas, urban, peri-urban, or rural, but also testing the research frames into different contexts and levels of development. We were part of the team that was managing the case study focused on Lower Danube, together with the Research Institute Joe Comar. And that was a great opportunity for us to look at and demonstrate the NIAD objective of insurance value of ecosystem. The idea being that once it's becoming interesting for different sectors, and not only water risk focused, this is going to increase the possibilities for future project implementation. NIAD has a very strong legacy, I think, and there are still, I'm very happy to see it taken forward also in the research conversations, but also in practical implementation. I think that the most important things that we achieved in that project was that we assessed the risk perception, and the levels are different and the perspectives are different depending on the stakeholder category. But also we underlined the co-benefits definition, and it proved very interesting to see, especially from the economic point of view, how those co-benefits could drive decision for making a nature-based solution the preferred alternative. At the same time, it created the possibility to assess the complexity that the cost-effect chain is affecting the NBS, and how the social and social conditions and institutional frames and measures, input, involvement, can influence the success of the design and implementation processes. Again, very, very important was to involve in these very, very elaborated participatory processes different stakeholder categories, and communicate and inform them in order to get their agreement and their interest in joining, let's say, action but with a very well substantiated perspective that is bringing what is in it for them. That was one of the most interesting questions that we had all along the consultations on the local side. It turned out that action means, yeah, partnership, things that we all in this, let's say in this webinar, we know that without a strong partnership between authorities, research and private sector, the implementation is difficult to be conducted with the long-term perspective, as it was already underlined, that is needed for the nature-based solutions. What also NIAD did was that it put the light on the 5 possible hats and empowered a bit or opened the interest, I would say, for the insurance sector to take different roles which could further on facilitate local action. So either as institutional investors or developers of climate-based insurance products, of course, partners in private-public partnerships, data provider and reinsurance, insurance and reinsurance of infrastructure. The last one is actually quite popular now in Romania due to the obligation that is included in different European funding streams. So these possible hats were defined at that time, and they were the basis for streaming further cooperation with the European insurance sector in the next steps. The case in Romania was focused on the lower Danube, as it was underlined in the figure before. And we had a great opportunity to conduct NIAD research in the same time with an Interreg project that was managed by the national water authorities. Our case was implemented in partnership with the River Basin Administration, GIU. But this alignment with the national vision was a great opportunity for both projects to put together results and build up a very strong case. We thought it's very strong and prepare it for future steps, let's say, which in our case was the opportunity of the National Resilience and Recovery Plan, in which in the floodplain restoration projects that we were looking at was earmarked, and we are very happy to see it. Unfortunately, in further steps in the implementation, there were divergent institutional perspectives which delayed the implementation process, and together with the general context in Romania, led to losing the opportunity for financing. But the strong case is there, and the plans are still, let's say, prioritized, and new pathways are currently investigated by water authorities, including through private financing in a possible partnership. Excuse me. What we learned from these activities was that it's not, I mean, it's always the water sector that jumps in first, and action is very much connected with, let's say, water aspects and water management. However, in order to be able to do action, to really implement action, you need a nexus approach. You need the other sectors to be aware, and you need them as allies for the action that you are building. Because if you don't consider them in this way from the beginning, you get to come to the situation that we faced in Romania. And later on, we learned that all the possibilities that you have to better bring the advantages of ecosystem-based adaptation to sectors that are not actually actively looking at this approach, this perspective, is only bringing benefits for action in real terms. And also the fact that sometimes with raising up from the grassroots to higher levels, local priorities are lost, or they are mixed in different other elements that are included in those strategies, and they kind of disappear. So the importance for the local communities is sometimes lost when the national level is taking forward priorities in action. What we did at BDG as a next step, it was a great opportunity to try to explore in depth these connections between the sectors. And we had the opportunity to work in Merlin, another Horizon project focused on mainstreaming ecological restoration of freshwater related ecosystem in a landscape context. And our role was as experts for working for WWF in Romania, was to explore the sectoral dependencies and nature-based solution, looking at insurance and agriculture. So looking at specifically how those two sectors can cooperate in the context of the Danube floodplain again. So that gave us a possibility to kind of continue our work in NIAD with a more specific approach. Merlin has a lot of elements that are very, very relevant, and I encourage the audience to go and check the website and all the materials that are provided by the project. It's already finished, and I think they can. I mean, they favor from the work that was done in Merlin. There is a big opportunity to be taken forward and facilitate cross-action between sectors in many, let's say, specific national contexts. In our case, we did a value chain analysis and how we can incentivize NBS adoption in the specific context, as I said, in the agricultural sector in Romania. And the main recommendations that we came to by different survey and dialogues and a lot of work on the ground was that intersectoral dialogue platforms play a very, very important role. Sometimes one sector is not aware of the risks that we in the water, from the water perspective, we see them quite powerful. But for the other sectors, even though we are talking insurance, the objectives are totally different. And when they come in dialogue together, they are able to understand better each other and contribute to co-creating processes and solutions that can include nature-based adaptation measures. Training and knowledge sharing events, yes, it's very, very important. And the way of attracting, again, sectors that are not per se looking at nature-based solutions or at the nature, let's say, also a more general view, it's also quite complicated task, but not impossible. And by activating both sectors in Romania, for example, we're already creating the good frame for them to go forward in this kind of activities that involve both professionals from both sectors and water management partners. From the point of view of insurance, the risk pooling mechanisms such as parametric microinsurance at landscape scale are also very, very instrumental to enhance smallholder resilience and support adoption of NBS in agriculture. And of course, always facilitate best practices of NBS in farmer trainings, as I already mentioned. Now, actually, the main purpose was to tell you about the step forward that we make in Nathalie, the project that we started in 2023, in which there are 43 partners are joined to demonstrate 18 types of NBS in 8 case studies across 6 biogeographical regions in Europe, with replication studies in 4 other sites located in the same biogeographical region as a support to European mission for climate change, adaptation to climate change. You see here the expected results. It's very, very ambitious. The project is in full swing. Many actions are in progress, and it's a lot of work that we do on the ground. Mainstreaming NBS in the national determined conditions, I think it's one of the most difficult ones, and we are working very hard together with our partners in the Văcărești Natural Park. We are the demo site number 2 to make it work. As we I will refer to that a bit later. I just want to mention that the Nathalie project has a dedicated work package to investing in ecosystem-based adaptation for climate resilient development, with an investment bundle that aims to identify funding and financing streams and help leverage private investment into nature. Everything is going to be documented from processes and actions that we take, especially case study based. There are 3 main tools that are going to be tested. The Natural Assurance Business Canvas, which was actually a product of NIAD, is going to be taken forward because we started it in NIAD, but now it's going to be taken forward in our case study in Romania.
Apologies, Florentina.
Sorry,
our time is
yeah, just to say that together with colleagues of iCatalyst, we are going to have a natural assurance scheme. Let me take it a bit back. That is going to be tested in the case study in Romania. The case study is double challenge because we have an urban area that is affected by drought, but that is also a natural protected one with a very complicated authorities, responsibilities, stakeholder involvement, and very, very interesting stakeholder landscape that we are trying to put in the frame of the nature-based, of the natural assurance canvas and make it replicable in other situations in Romania. In Bucharest, precisely, we would like to see it included in a blue-green corridor. Transforming NBS into systemic responses is very difficult. Specific context and application in those contexts are very, very important in terms of working forward in the research projects. Just to wrap it up, private-public alliances on long term are probably the best key to enter in this area with very strong demonstration value of nature-based solutions that were selected as choices for mitigating climate risks. Follow us. As I said, we are in full swing. More information is going to come up. The project is on LinkedIn, but also there is a website that can offer a lot of information. Thank you so much, and sorry for taking a bit more time than I supposed to.
Thank you, Florentina. So we'll run quickly to our next speaker, Stephen Kibet. And Stephen will share some insight on ground-up approaches. Stephen also works with the Nature Conservancy in Africa and the African region. He leads implementation of water fund programs across the region, combining restoration, livelihoods, and conservation programs. His work demonstrates how technology such as drone-based monitoring, can help communities to measure impact and mobilize resources more effectively. So, Stephen, the floor is yours for the next 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much, Kirk, and my previous presenters for setting a good stage on the role of NBS. And basically, as Kirk has mentioned, we in Kenya, we are actually implementing Water Fund. And what I'm going to share with you is how we have been able to build these water funds and use technology to show the impact of the work that we are doing. And importantly, is the role that the youth from the local community have been able to play in terms of showcasing what is happening based on the restoration activities that we are undertaking. So just to give you a quick overview, I know Franz and Naomi had already touched on this, but just basically the model that we are using for financing is actually called the water funds model, and it is about linking the downstream users with the upstream users. And in this case, we build a very strong governance and legal model in between that is able to run the conservation activities, because basically we get financing maybe for 3 or 5 years, and now we are building a fund that is able to last more than 70 years. Some of the financing some of them have already been mentioned that we are utilizing in Kenya, include endowment funds where we invest and then the interest is used for conservation. We also have the private financing, including also the public financing. We've been able now to go to the space of water tariffs from the water utility companies, and all these are part of the financing mechanism for the water funds that we are implementing. There is also another very good contribution from the local community that we work with, because we are doing restoration in areas that they are living. They are at the front line of conservation. So we've been able to bring them on board in terms of, taking care of areas that we have done restoration, maybe basically tree planting. And in that case, we have the goodwill of the local community, including the indigenous communities. So in Africa, we already have 17 water funds, and you can see how they are spread in the map. And what is critical here is that out of these 17 water funds, TNC is leading only 2. So most of the others are partner-led, with TNC providing technical support. And this is lessons that we've learned from Gito, and we've been able to replicate in Africa. The demand is huge for this water fund model, and the Kenyan government is adopting this as one of the models for restoring the watersheds. So for the case of today, we are looking at one of the water funds that is in the western part of Kenya. It's called the Eldoret Water Fund. So in this is the part that most of the top world athletes come from. And it is an catchment that provides water to the city of Eldoret and the municipality of Iten. But interestingly, these are the city and the municipality, there's water deficit. So our work now in terms of doing the NBSS here is basically to restore this watershed that has more 120,000 hectares. Some of the things that is happening in the habitat is we are experiencing a situation where there is a lot of degradation and unsustainable land management, and this is threatening the issues of water quality and quantity. So you find that the water utility company are using a lot of resources to clean the water and to provide to the residents in these municipalities. So, so what we have done here is that through the Nature Conservancy Monitoring and Evaluation Learning Grant that we got, we were able to mobilize and train youth from the local community. And all this came because of the idea that the initial funding we had for the water fund was for 3 years. And we needed to show that there is action on the ground, and this is something that is sustainable. So we leverage on drone technology, which by then the laws had just been passed. And for us, it was to navigate and be able to utilize the drone technology to show the impact of the work that we are doing on the ground. So the whole idea was we acquire very high resolution imageries and now use this to inform the intervention of the areas that we are doing, and also use this as part of resource mobilization. So basically, this was actually a very inclusive drone training, and most of these youths were from high school. They have never even interacted with a drone before, but now they are licensed drone pilots. So the picture that you see there is some of the youths that they were doing their data collection. And some of the things that we were able to achieve through that youth-led drone program was we were able to develop the guidelines for analyzing drone imageries. As I mentioned, this was a new technology for us. The regulations and the policies that just been passed. So it was like you are navigating a new path that was not there before. Then the other outcome was we were able to develop a drone operational framework and plan. And this is something that we already have, and we are able now to use this even in other water funds. What also came through the work that we did was a recommendation for future engagement of youth. So if you are to engage youth in terms of monitoring from local community, so we already have those ones, and that is guiding our work. So the next slides is just to showcase some of the things that the youth have been able to capture from the drone images. And these are basically like flying, not even very detailed analysis where you go to do like, remote sensing analysis, but even visually just looking at what is happening within the river buffer zones. What is the level of vegetation cover within these areas? Where are the degraded areas that need priority for restoration? So with the drone technology, the youths are able now to provide feedback even to our implementation teams. So apart from the riparian buffer zones, as I mentioned, one of the challenges that is happening in the catchment is the unsustainable land management practices. So as a program, we are doing a lot of conservation activities, which includes terraces and strip grasses. And you can see from the two drone photos there, the work that we are doing. The other photo here, you can see water harvesting, and during the dry season, the farmers are able now to even be able to water their vegetables and sell. And in that case, they are doing it in a very sustainable manner. We also look at the impact of trees, looking at areas that there were no trees, and with the water fund model application, we've been able to plant some of the trees, and we can now be able to monitor where, in terms of spacing, looking at the proportion of land with soil management, and all these are coming in handy in terms of informing our priority for intervention. So basically, the drone technology is coming in not only as part of resource mobilization, but also guiding the project implementation teams on the priority areas for intervention. The other area which is quite interesting is on issues of wetland. In the areas that we are implementing, there are significant wetlands, and these are wetlands that are home to some of the very endangered antelopes and wren birds. And what you see here is an area that we only did an enclosure. So you can see there is a big difference between the area inside here that is very green and the area that we don't have a lot of grasses. So based on the work that we did, we realized that this was actually a source of water. And what we needed to do was to create an enclosure. And now with getting the drone fly in, we are able to get the photos, and we are able to see what is happening, because some of these areas you are not able to reach just by walking or doing the ground photography. So apart from the wetlands, it's also in the protected forested areas. So you realize that with the drone technology, we are able even to capture the pitting work that is being done. And we are now able to track and see how the conservation activities is happening along the areas that we don't have trees, and they are very close to riparian areas. And this is part of showing the impact of the conservation work. Then on the part of the biodiversity, so what the photos that you see there, this is a very rare Sitatunga antelope. This is actually the amphibian antelope that lives in wetland areas, and they are very shy. but apparently they are actually endangered. So it is so difficult to see them just by walking, and the only way we could capture their habitats and to see where they are living was by use of the drones. Now we already know where they are living, we already know how their habitat looks like, and now with that we are able to work with the local community to conserve those wetlands so that we can be able to sustainably manage this threatened antelope. What are some of the things that we've learned from this program? Number one is the fact that in as much as it moved from being a pilot program, now we have noted that it provides promising results to scale. So we are able now to replicate the drone technology, not only in Eldoret, but now we've been able to use the same drone technology in the first water fund in Africa, that is the Patana Nairobi Water Fund. We have also gone to the Yala Nyando Conservation Water Fund. We are again in Jumuiya Water Fund, that is in the coastal region of Kenya, and even extending to our neighboring country of Tanzania, that is the Tanga Water Fund. So our team just came back from collecting very high resolution imageries in Tanga. The second lessons that we've learned is the opportunity of involving youth. So basically, with the high unemployment rates, through this, we are creating an opportunity, and youths like technology. So it's an avenue that we are able to involve them in terms of conservation, and they are able to showcase what is happening, considering that they are coming from their localities. Then the other thing is the fact that this is a very low cost technology. The cost of the drones, the cost of facilitating the youth to go to collect the data is not very high. And for us, that is one of the sustainable ways of monitoring and showing the impact of the work that we are doing. The other opportunity is that now with improvement in technology, the artificial intelligence, the GIS, the remote sensing, we are now able to do more detailed analysis on the data that has been collected. And this informs the work that we are doing and also inform also our donors and show them the impact of the work that we are doing. And that is related to what we call the evidence-based monitoring. With a photo, as they say, a photo speaks 1,000 words. So with the photos that they are collecting, we are able to show all this. Some of the challenges that we've been able to address through this is on issues of safety. Flying the drones has a lot of regulations, so we have to be very keen in terms of the safety. And then again, they are accessing the drone equipment. So that is one other challenges that we've been able to navigate, and we considering that you have to import the regulations of bringing the drones to the country, registration and all the other processes to ensure that we have the regulatory compliance. It is something that we have navigated, and we are very happy that now we are able to even share lessons with other programs that would want to use some of these technologies. With that, I say in Swahili, asante sana, which means thank you. And the photo that you see there is one of the areas that is one of the dams that provides water to the areas that we are talking. Thank you, and back to you, Kak.
Thanks so much, Steve. Really interesting. And I wish we had more time, but maybe we can take a couple of questions or so before we invite Miss Andrea Ferret-Lambert for the closing remarks. So perhaps I would ask one question, and then we take it from all our speakers from your perspective. So, and the question is simply that, so given today's discussion, all you shared, at the local level, what are the most important enabling factors for mainstreaming NBS? What are the most important enabling factors for enabling NBS as a best practice for climate adaptation, disaster risk reduction, and so on? So it'd be interesting to see how, for instance, Franz brings the finance aspect, Andrea looks at the systems dimension, and so on. And so over to you. I think maybe we can start with Franz.
Well, thank you very much for your question, Kirk. For me, I think it's important to improve the enabling environment in order to promote nature-based solutions. So I think it needs to talk to have a technical discussions with governments, and also to explain the importance of nature-based solutions. And that's, for instance, our idea. Currently, we are finishing a methodology of selection of 22 types of nature-based solutions in a methodology that we're working with TNC, and we hope to finish by the end of this year. And the idea is to provide this methodology to the governments in order to see how they can fit with nature-based solutions in different projects at the inception of them. And I think that's quite important. But most important is we have the enabling environment in terms of policy, in terms of institutions that are aware of the importance of nature-based solutions. So I think we need to work closely on advocacy to the officials, to officers of governments and others, and also sometimes to work on public policies to make room for nature-based solutions compared to great solutions, and try to identify the complementation to complement both solutions. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Franz. Thank you. Really hard press for time, but maybe just 30 seconds. 30 seconds from Andrea. Yeah.
I'm going to give you 15. I think the most important thing we have found is a local champion. All the other pieces and parts require persistence, time, energy, and you need an organization, an entity, and a person who will be that local champion. And the rest of us can help, but that's the most important thing for us.
Thank you, Andrea. I think Florentina wanted to add just 15 seconds.
Yes, just to add that those champions need a good environment to demonstrate, to provide nature-based solution demonstration, effect demonstration. So if you have a pilot that is working and you can have a champion that can promote it, we have a good chance to make it work and mainstream NBSs as preferred solutions. Yes.
Thank you, Florentina. So sorry we are short of time. So I'll invite Miss Andrea Ferret-Lambert from the Water and Europe. She's a Water and Europe Policy Officer at the French Biodiversity Agency to share the closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I will be very quick. So as Kirk explained, I'm from the French Biodiversity Agency, which is a public establishment under the combined authority of the French Ministry for the Environment and the Ministry in charge of Agriculture. And our goal is to protect and restore biodiversity in all parts of France. And since our motto is protecting nature is protecting us, protecting humans, protecting society, you can imagine that the topic of nature-based solutions, especially for water security in a changing climate, is especially important to us. And as we are the pilots of the European project called Life Artisan, which is spanning over 8 years, looking at an action program implemented by 28 partners, working at different levels of governance within France, from the local level with 10 pilot sites implementing solutions, seeing where the rubber meets the road, where the problems are and what the solutions are. So from this very local level to the regional level, where there is 14 regional networks to facilitate nature-based solutions and their implementations. And finally, the national level that we are piloting, developing tools, studies, training, and events to support all of the other levels and partners. And one of the tools that we are developing at the national level within the Life Artisan project at the French Biodiversity Agency is to identify what are the biggest hurdles to the implementation of nature-based solutions. And finance is oftentimes one of those biggest hurdles. And I was very struck by this webinar and all of the amazing interventions by the different speakers, that to find out that financing nature-based solutions is not just about finance, it's also about governance and awareness raising just as much as it is about the actual money. And so to close this webinar, I want to leave you with 3 key lessons that we found out through the Life Artisan project, but that I think are echoed here by the different speakers and their presentations. So 3 lessons, 2 rendezvous, 2 meetings that you can attend, and 1 last word. The 3 lessons are that, of course, public funding is expected to fill especially a role of de-risking the nature-based solutions, but we need private finance as well. We need private financing, and those presentations that we have seen today show that it's not just possible to have the private sector taking care of nature-based solution projects, but it's also very much necessary. The second lesson I want to leave you with is that we need to take into account all stages of the nature-based solution project within the financing plan. So not just looking at the works being done on the ground, but also looking beforehand at diagnostics regarding biodiversity benefits, but also downstream of the works on the ground, looking at maintenance costs, operation costs, which are oftentimes less in terms of operation costs, less than what you would expect, or less than what you would expect for great infrastructure. And the third lesson is that we need to stop waiting. We have seen here by the different presentations how important awareness raising is, how important communicating about the existing data is, because the data exists today and the evidence is already very clear that nature-based solutions are no regrets type of solutions, and that there are many, many existing projects that have shown that nature-based solutions contribute to reducing the vulnerability to a variety of risks, especially for water security. And so the implementation of nature-based solutions will be paramount at all levels, and it is necessary to do that if we are to reach the objectives that we have all agreed on globally with the CBD, and also at the European level, because we have seen many European projects being showcased today. At the European level, the object is about nature restoration, climate adaptation, and also climate mitigation. And now, so those were my 3 lessons, and I have 2 rendezvous to give you. The first one being an official UNFCCC side event organized by the International Network of Basin Organization, which will happen during COP30 on the 12th of November. So if you want to meet up at this event called Nature-Based Solutions for Climate Adaptation in the Basins of Rivers and Lakes, join us and also call on to INBO. I think Edouard has left the contact information. Second rendezvous that I can give you is to join us at the IWRA, that's the International Water Resource Association Congress, which will be happening in Marrakesh on the first week of December, and where I have the very great pleasure to organize a session on nature-based solutions for water security, looking at all the challenges and the tools for implementation. And then finally, I promised you one last word. One last word is thank you, of course. Thank you for convening this session. Thank you to all of the conveners and partners of the webinar, which are the World Water Council, the INBO, the International Networks for Basin Organizations, the Swedish Agency for Marine and Water Management, the Nature Conservancy, and CAF. And thank you to all of the speakers and all of the partners who are here today listening to the webinar. It was a fantastic day. Let's not wait.
Thank you. Yeah, a big thank you again, and let's keep the conversation going. I think Edouard put the email for INBO in the chat, so please feel free to write, send in the questions you couldn't ask, and so on. And on behalf of all the partners again, thank you again for your time. We're a few minutes over. Thank you again, and let's stay in touch. Keep an eye for the next webinar. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.